T.J. Hooker returns next week at this time. Now a special presentation.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
I remember when The Dark Knight Returns came out. I remember when Watchmen came out. So, of course, I remember when Kingdom Come came out.
Kingdom Come is 4 separate issues, 48 pages apiece. It was an all-immersive kind of lifestyle for me.
It blew people away. I mean, this was the most sought-after book there was.
This was something very new, very different.
No one had seen anything like that at that scale before.
It was amazing.
I never thought from anything that people would still be talking about this book 25 years later.
Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Happy to welcome two guys. I've never had them together before, but of course they're old standbys when it comes to Word Balloon, and I'm glad they're back. It's Pornsak Pichetshote. Good to see you, Pornsak.
Good to see you, man.
And our returning champion, who I just saw last month in Connecticut, Terry Dodson. Good to see you, Terry.
Hey, John. Thanks for having us. Good to be here.
Oh, Terry! God damn it! I just saw it. I'm looking at the title, and I put the B in instead of the D for Dodson. I'm an idiot. And Pornsak, I know the description. I dropped the E at the end of your name, man. So, all right, Miss Grundy has to give me a D for spelling today. I apologize, boys, but I'll fix all that shit. I promise you.
Of course.
So, well, guys, honestly, this is really great because I've said this before. Nothing makes me happier than when creators will take a genre or a trope and modernize it in some sort of way. And that sounds like what we're dealing with, the Horizon experiment, and more specifically, your guys' new one-shot from Image, The Manchurian. Fantastic spy story, but with, obviously, there you go, folks, a Chinese lead. Pornsak, are you beyond writing this issue? Are you editing or co-editing with Will the other 5 issues?
Yeah, the other 4. So I'm writing this one, and Will's my editor on that, and then on the other 4, me and Will are co-editing, and it's great because we've been friends for 20 years now, and so like I think I assisted him like back in the day, but we never actually like. I mean, editors don't get a chance to co-edit one thing very often, so to actually like co-edit it has been really fun with someone I know as well as I know Will.
Well, tell us about what the whole 5-issue series is about, and then we'll get into Terry and how he decided to come along on this thing.
Sure. So the Horizon experiment is 5 one-shot pilots. They're going to be released monthly, a new one every month, and I see it as a showcase series. And there are launch issues for 5 theoretical series that all the creative teams are interested in doing more if the sales and the response are there. And and the conceit or the marching orders I gave all the teams is that give me a protagonist of color, and set the story in a popular genre, but set it in such a way that if you change the background of the character, your entire story would have to change. And through that, everyone's given me sort of blockbuster stuff. We've got Saber Prasada and Michael Walsh doing, and Saber is a TV screenwriter who's worked for Marvel and Lucasfilms. He's doing The Sacred Dam, which is about a Muslim exorcist or Muslim John Constantine. Tananarive Due, whose book The Reformatory is winning every award this year. She's kind of like the Octavia Butler of horror. She's working with this newcomer Kelsey Ramsey, and they're doing a book called Moondogs, which is about East African werewolves in Miami. It's talking about the experience of being a minority within a minority. We've got Jay Holtham and Michael Lee Harris. Michael Lee Harris is this fantastically unique indie cartoonist. Jay is a playwright and a screenwriter, and he's the writer and co-executive producer of the Emmy Award-winning Handmaid's Tale. And they're doing a book called Motherfucking Monsters, which is Evil Dead for blurs, for black nerds. And we've got Vida Ayala from comics, who's worked on everything in comics, with Skylar Patridge. And they did some Wonder Woman comics together, but they've always wanted to work together on something creator-owned. And now they're doing a book called Finders Keepers, which is a reverse Indiana Jones, a Puerto Rican who steals from museums and brings artifacts back to their native cultures. And
oh wow, good idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea. All this stuff has like all these great ideas, and it's a blockbuster team coming from all different sort of walks of entertainment, just doing comics. And so I love all the creators, and it's been really fun to just work with them all on this. And in that, there's my book with Terry, the Manchurian, which is about a half Chinese, half Caucasian super spy in the vein of James Bond, who does covert missions here in America for China.
Very interesting. Tara, what intrigued you about getting on board on this?
Pornsak gave me the pitch on the story, and from the get-go, I liked the idea. I always liked, James Bond / spy stories, political intrigue, and obviously working on something that was like 180 from anything we'd seen before by, flip it on the head, having to be a Chinese spy instead of an American spy or British spy was really cool, especially set in the U.S. I liked the idea of doing an espionage book. I think doing something visually different than what I've done before. So there was, so many little facets that made it a lot of yeses for me. And then once I heard the pitch for the actual Horizon experiment, how they were going to launch the books together, I thought that was an amazing idea. I've done enough creator-owned stuff now that I know how important marketing and getting the word out on your book is. And so to see how cool of an idea it was to have all these amazing books launched together and using each other to support each other to get the word out is a real smart thing. So there really wasn't an aspect of it I didn't like. When when you check off those many things on my list, it makes it pretty easy for me to want to do a project like this.
Tara, forgive me because it's been about a couple hundred comics since we talked about it. Would you say Red One? Wasn't it Red One? Your book, wasn't that kind of an espionage thing as well?
Yeah. It is. I just the timelines on it and the manner and the type of stories are so different. In the basic essence, they are spy books. One's more of that. Red One would actually be more like a political thriller, I think, and Manchurian is definitely information book and a people book. So they're completely different, but yeah, there's enough there that makes them in the same. If you had to put them on a shelf, they could be in the same category, but they'd be at the far ends. Yeah.
Tara, I'm gonna show some of your art, and I'm only gonna show the first few panels because I really want people to check out the whole book, obviously. But while I'm doing that, Pornsak, I'm so glad again to point out the difference of what we're used to as far as standard spy Cold War stuff.
Yeah.
Even in the modern era. And I loved your preface in the book where you're like, for Chinese intelligence, it's a different ballgame. Why don't you explain while I start showing some of Terry's images?
Yeah, so in Chinese espionage, the FBI describes it as the 1,000 grains of sand approach, and what that means is that for Western espionage, if we want to get sand off a beach, we'd send elite frogmen in the middle of the night to go in and steal that sand. But Chinese espionage or Eastern espionage believes that you take 1,000 tourists in the middle of the day where everyone can see them and have them walk on that beach. And then when they come, and then after they're done, they all shake the sand out of their boots until they have as much or if not more sand than what your elite frogmen could have gotten all by themselves. And so they take that approach to espionage where Chinese spies, they don't break any laws. It's basically what they do is they just gather gossip and they all funnel it back. And then there's someone on the other side that just puts it all together to sort of come up with the truth. And so because no one breaks any laws, it's impossible to catch them. It's about citizen spies, and it's about a community of what, the power of a community as opposed to sort of one lone operative. And so the Manchurian is kind of a twist on that. It's sort of saying like, well, if you have all these sort of spies working, like who protects them when they're in trouble? And the Manchurian is sort of tasked to do that. So he's sort of an elite spy protecting all these sort of citizen spies.
Tara, hot people engaging in romance. Let's do the PG description. Gee, I'm really sorry. You're kind of out of your element here, aren't you?
Hey man, we are taking the spy tropes and playing with them. I mean, we really did this. I mean, Pornsak came up with an amazing opening here to pull people into what they think is pretty familiar territory, and that's when we get to flip things on its head a bit, So, it was. Pornsak will tell you this, but they wanted someone that could do certain things with a spy book, and that was pretty much what I do good. So I'm happy to be involved in part of the project because plays to a lot of my strengths. But there's a lot of good stuff in here that's challenging as well, and new things I had to do and play around with to tell the story correctly. So yeah.
Cool. Well, honestly, the last 2 interviews I did, I had Mark Miller on Monday afternoon, and I had J.H. Williams on last night. And as I tell everybody watching and listening, if they want to chime in with questions, certainly I love to talk about the Manchurian, but we can play greatest hits as well. You want to talk to Pornsak about Man's Best from Boom or The Good Asian. You want to talk to Tara about Adventure Man, the great book that he's doing with Matt Fraction, or past great hits. Pornsak about Vertigo and stuff. Everything's on the table. So yeah, please everybody, because I'm sure we'll get into that stuff as well. Again, I appreciate, I think, a lot of the back matter, although it's really kind of splayed out through the book, Pornsak, that you put out there to, again, it kind of explain the differences. And, I give it up to guys like you and Ram V. You did it already with The Good Asian as well, where you're both like taking these tropes. And it's like, no, there's nothing wrong with this. Let's put a different spin on it, whether it's a different protagonist or eliminate some of, and certainly not in your case, but I know like Ram I always bring up These Savage Shores. And it's like, all right, what's the victim's perspective on the classic English vampire story, but even more so set it in Mumbai rather than Victorian London and everything. So you get a different story. And it's like, wait a minute, this is fresh. And again, there's like, I'm a big believer of there's nothing wrong with foreign intrigue stories as long as you respect the foreigners.
Yeah.
From the Americans' perspective.
Yeah.
But, don't disrespect them. Don't treat them like UGG kind of natives and stuff like that. They have a culture. They're smart people. They've built a civilization. Give them the props. So I think this is great. And, man, I'm really excited. I'll probably bug Vita at the very least to talk about her book because I think that's terrific. You said they're all going to come out monthly?
They're all coming out monthly. So, Saber's rolling his out in Sacred Damned is next month in October. Tananarive and Kelsey are doing Moondogs in November. December is Motherfucking Monsters with Jay and Michael Lee. And then Vita is in January. Vita and Skylar are in January.
Cool. That's great, man. No, very, very excited, man. Yeah, I think that's great. All right, people are already starting to ask you. Oh, here, wait 1 second. He wants to know how Pornsak got involved with Absolute DC. Can't wait for the Manchurian. The main character reminds me of Henry Golding. Who's Henry Golding? I don't know Henry Golding.
Henry Golding is it's a sharp eye. Henry Golding is half Caucasian, I think he's half British, half Chinese, half Malaysian. He is probably best known for being the leading man on Crazy Rich Asians.
And sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I definitely see he would make a great Calvin Lowe. I can definitely see it.
Yeah.
Good casting, Alex.
Yeah. No, he definitely was the first person I thought of, and then it was just a matter of figuring out what I liked about him. And then since this is a slightly different character, he's more of an action character. I did have to make tweaks on him to get him right. But yeah, it definitely gave me a great starting point for where to go for the feel that we wanted. He looks like a James Bond. So
yeah. Terry, have you ever drawn Jimmy Woo from the Agents of Atlas and S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Oh, yes. I did a cover. Yes.
Okay.
Jimmy Woo on it. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I mean, and I don't know how much interior S.H.I.E.L.D. Drawing you've done in your past and everything.
Yeah. No, just the cover for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problems. All right, I got to ask. Obviously, you've got your cat with you there. What's your cat's name again?
Jock.
Jock.
He loves my voice. Obviously, he's very concerned that I'm talking and ignoring him. So I love it to be part of the show. So
that sounds like a cat. All right. That sounds like.
I got to zoom in on Terry's sweatshirt because we're both like, what do you got on, man? So what is that?
That is a skeleton surfing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Sure it is.
Nice.
Outstanding, man. That's
Yeah,
great. Well, that's interesting. Again, that these are pilot books, and I guess is the plan that audience response to move forward with hopefully more than one. If they all get a positive response, 5 new series.
Yeah, exactly. I think everybody on board wants to do more. So it really just comes down to response and just people taking a chance. And comic stores are weird, so it's or not weird, but like it's a different ecosystem. So it's about like people showing up and saying, "Hey, I want it," and making sure that it flies off the shelf. So it's one of the things I'm asking people that don't expect, like nothing of all the projects I've worked on, nothing I would want to sell out more than this. And it seems like it's actually trending in that direction. So I'm encouraging everybody, the book comes out in about 8 days, technically, because it's Tuesday night. So technically, 7 days from tomorrow. So please tell your stores to reserve yourself a copy.
So the September 25th, everybody, for people who aren't doing the math at home.
Next Wednesday. Yeah.
Next Wednesday.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very soon. Your next comic book store.
And the audio will be dropping tomorrow, so people will
perfect
have time to see it. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. That I was saying this to Jim last night too. It's like, I'm sorry I didn't get you guys on final order cutoff and everything. But I hope the stores are responding. I mean, my God, it's certainly Tear, proven commodity with your wonderful body of work. And Pornsak, you're on a roll, man. Beyond between Good Asian and Man's Best as well. Has Man's Best wrapped up, Pornsak?
Yeah, we wrapped up in July, and that was a blast. I got to work with Jesse Lonergan, and he's just, his stuff is just so distinct. And so getting to work with him is unlike anything. It's funny working with someone like Jesse and working with someone like Terry, because like Terry, and I've talked about this before, like it's just this amazing magic trick that Terry does where he makes every panel looks exactly like it does in my head when I'm writing it, but just 1,000 times like more pretty, and it's so weird to have that experience. And the only and me and Terry have actually talked about this over dinner, where I think I just I've been reading his comics for so long, like so much of like the principles that he uses when he's doing storytelling have just sort of been ingrained in me. And so that's so cool to watch. And then you have someone like Jesse, who the whole point with Jesse is like, I give him 5 panels, like, do whatever you want. He breaks it down to 24. And I look come back, like, what is this? But it's in the best way, in the best kind of surprise. So it's been great to go back, it's a completely different experience from both artists, but yet both give me exactly what I want. So it's kind of awesome.
Terry, is this the first time you've worked with Pornsak, even in an editing capacity?
Yes, because I actually had only done one or two Vertigo projects ever. So then that was always with Shelley. We met, Pornsak and I met at the Eisners 2 years ago, 2022, when he won the Good Asian and I lost for Best Colorist. So it was we met in the middle, and that we gathered together and made this out of that. So it was a great way to meet him, and then we've stayed in touch ever since. And so I think the Manchurian's been up in the air now for well over a year. I think even last June that we started talking about it. So it's been in the works for a long time. So it's been short, but we've in a very short time we've gotten a long ways. So
yeah.
This book is 40 pages long, everybody, and I think that's great. And I also appreciate the idea of done in one and okay, the premise, what we're doing. Do you want to go further? I mean, this is what I always say about people with their first issues. It's important. I even in a 5-chapter first story or whatever, it's really important, obviously, to get that story across in that first issue and make people understand what you guys are doing and what you're trying to achieve and everything. So it's I think it's a really satisfying read and beautiful action as always from Tear. Absolutely, boys. No, well done. Truly well done. I just saw Tear. I was telling Pornsak off the air. We saw each other last month in Connecticut for Terrificon. Right. And I'm glad you had a good time.
It was amazing. It's all based off of you raving about that show for the last how many years on Word Balloon. It's like, I have to go. John cannot.
Well, that's very sweet. And truly, I was telling Pornsak, I'm like, I got to get Pornsak on Mitch's radar too, to get into a show and everything. No, this is
a
really
great show.
And I'm glad you had a good time, and I'm glad it went well for you, Terry. Truly, because again, I think it's weird, and it's one of the few independent shows still. You know, everyone's kind of, you know, GalaxyCon has so many shows and Fan Expo has so many shows and stuff. And, you know, it's interesting that the survivors of the individual shows and stuff, you know, who does a good job. And yeah, you know, he's my friend. I think he does a good job.
It's still a local show. It's one guy. It's one guy's show. And that's what next year will be his 10th year. I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
It's not even been that long. And it was, I don't know what the attendance was, but the show was jam packed and it was crowds the whole time. And, you know, I'd just been in San Diego 3 weeks before that when I had an amazing San Diego. I had a great time. You know, had one of my best San Diegos ever. But then when I arrived in Connecticut to go into the convention hall, I'm walking in to go set up, and I'm walking by booth after booth after booth of comic books. I haven't seen so many comic books for so long. And then from that, we walked into the Artist Alley, and it was just jam-packed with people. And so what the quote that I'd like to use, and I was not actually there at the time, but I'd have to say this was like San Diego Comic-Con in 1990. Where it was pure comics and pure prose. I mean, it just I had to be like this. All that enthusiasm for people for comics. It was amazing. I haven't signed so many comics in so long. It was pretty self-contained that it would flow from the comic stuff back into the Artist Alley, and then it was easy to get out of there and take breaks. So as for professionals, I recommend the show. But for fans, what an amazing show! I will not be shocked if that thing's gonna blow up in the next year or two. Doubles in size because it was an amazing experience. So
that's really nice. I know Mitch appreciates it, and again, it makes me happy that my recommendation panned out. And like you know, I am kind of his priest going from creator to creator, going, hey man, you gotta check this out. It's a good show, and it's just a nice resort. Mohegan, you know, gambling fine, and there's great gambling. I mean, if you wanna have a James Bond kind of experience, a Manchurian experience, if you will.
That's right.
It's there for you, but also just a nice resort, perfect time of year, late, you know, earlier, sometime in August usually. Weather's great. They're right on the Mohegan River, you know. So yeah, all right, Mitch. I think I did more, and me and Terry did.
After working with Terry for a year, I've learned that if I'm thinking about going to any convention, to check with Terry, because Terry goes to like literally the cream of the crop convention. He's worked it down to such a science that like if he I run any convention by Terry and to get his approval because he knows them all. He knows which ones are the best ones to go to.
I'm a busy guy. I like prioritizing my time. I like drawing comics, and when I'm not, I want to make sure I'm with people that want to see me. So it's a good way to do it. Terry,
how did the art book do for you?
Really good. Obviously, the Kickstarter was sensational. All those were in people's hands by May, and then it was in comic book stores in June, and in regular bookstores everywhere, Amazon to any of your local bookstores since August. So it's widely distributed, and I couldn't be happier with the book itself. I mean, John Flesk is an amazing publisher. He's a great person. He's a great guy to be around. He's a great human being. He's a great businessman. He's extremely fair and honest, and he has a great eye for design. And so it was the first one of these books that I've done where I really just backed off and let John do all the design work. And it was really cool. He after the book was put together, he would call us every week or so, and we give him an hour or two of information on every single piece of art in that book. And so this is not just an art book. It's actually really a real behind the scenes look at our art and, you know, our process. And the funny thing is that we included my rough sketches that I do for covers, which I usually do like about 2 by 3 inches, tiny little things, just rough. And I've had like the most response to people seeing those things because they're seeing really inside my head, the gem of the idea that becomes the cover, the poster, or whatever. And so that was interesting because they don't look great, but people could see in those and how I work and how that becomes the piece that we do was pretty fascinating. So really thrilled with it. We're already talking with Flesk about at least 2 more books to do with him to follow up with this. So it's been a tremendous experience.
That's amazing. You know, again, I was talking to JH last night and about his Dracula book that he's putting out now. And it's it reminds me of like some of those Flesk adaptations of classics. We were talking about Gary Gianni doing 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and some of the other Flesk books that he's done over the years. Now, I'm a big John Flesk fan and Flesk publications. I think they're great.
Yeah, they do. It's an amazing range of books about so many amazing artists, from people from the 19th century to up and comers. There's a Daniel Warren Johnson book coming out next year.
Oh wow!
And Daniel's one of the best new artists around. So, and he does animation people, concept people, illustrators. He really covers a really good range of artists. So I'm really happy to be part of the lineup of people that he works with.
That's cool. Pornsak, we're waiting for more Edison Hawk stories.
It's coming. It's coming.
Okay.
It's coming.
Good
The research process takes me a while, so I'm still going through it. But it is definitely I definitely feel the guilt of knowing I need to get back to it. So yes.
Do you see yourself, this is a Chinese protagonist. As we get, do you see yourself progressing into the years? Are we going to get into the 40s and of the?
He said teasingly. I don't want to give too much away, but I will say people have figured out that if you get the hardcover, it says The Good Age in 1936, and so people have felt out that there might be a reason why I'm calling out the year of that the book takes place. So yes, I want to leave there to be some surprise, but I'm neither confirming nor denying.
Cool.
Fair enough. At Tear, Adventure Man. Obviously, we're waiting for the next volume.
Yeah, actually, we confirmed the next issues will be shipping March 2025.
Hey, great!
So it'll be solicitations will go in November. After we did, or as we were doing volume 3 of Adventure Man, I told Matt, start writing volume 4 right now, because we have hit traction. This book has really taken off. We really hit the story I think we all wanted to tell the whole time. It took us 4 years to get there, but him and I are very excited. He wrote the first or the next 3 issues for that volume already. So this is the first time I've had that many pages sitting in front of me, which is exciting, knowing that he's that excited about the project. But since it's creator owned, and as you know, Adventure Man, there's so much characters and places and times and etc. that we visit, that stuff all has to be designed. And I really pride myself in doing good research and making sure everything is unique and cool and whatever. And I'll want to draw again, or be able to be made into a really cool toy or something, So it's a blast to have all that stuff in front of me and be able to think, 40 pages ahead as I'm drawing page 10 or whatever. So, and we get to hit a couple new genres and locations, and so we have got some really good stuff that I'm so excited about where we're going with it. It'll be a good surprise for the people who are reading, and I think we'll be able to bring in a lot of new readers, even though it's our 4th volume. I think we'll pull in a lot of new readers, and we actually have in December. Adventure Man Volume 1, which will collect the first 5 issues, which is 200 pages, will be available for $12.99 everywhere in all bookstores in the mass market edition.
That's great.
I think Image is really excited about that, because that is their method for really distributing the books, is that method. Matt and I really love the hardcovers with the oversized and the bonus stuff and the end pages and all those cool bells and whistles we get to do. But Image knows that the best way to get the book out is a low priced, affordable copy that everybody can find and buy and read. And so that comes out in December, and then with the new issues in March, we'll have a really good winter into the summer of Adventure Man. So we're really excited about that.
That's great, man. And I know obviously Matt's busy doing TV writing and stuff, and I'm really happy for him that Monarch did as well as it did. I don't even know currently what TV things he might be cooking up. I got to check in with him and see. But
yes.
Was that tough, Tara, through these volumes and everything, as far as balancing Matt's TV writing and his comic writing?
Honestly, the only comic that he was writing full time during that was Adventure Man. So anytime I needed something from Adventure Man, Matt would get it for me. So the universe itself was so complex to build that it really worked out well that he actually had other stuff to be doing while I was designing that. That part of the process was so engaging. I don't think anybody knows this, but like the first issue of Adventure Man took me an entire year to do. I spent 12 months doing that. It's 56 pages, 56 pages. It's a lot of pages, but there was so much design work that went in. And so Matt being on a full-time job writing TV was perfect for me to work on that, and then him be able to fill in the gaps as I needed them. So it worked out really well. And for him, I mean, to go be in a day job writing TV is a lot of stress, a lot of work, and a lot of pressure. So for him to be able to take a break and work on Adventure Man, I really got Matt having fun. It was Matt being a kid again or whatever. It was a really rewarding experience for him to take that break away from the duties of Monarch.
Well, beyond your usual great action and art and faces and beautiful people that you put in every book, as I told you, hell, I even love, and it was funny, I was at the Chicago Theater a couple of weeks ago seeing a fantastic concert. Squeeze was just, man, they still, I know, man, we're old men. It's like, all right, Squeeze. You know, you go, her Squeeze, what's that? You know, I mean, you talk to a kid, but they still sound great. But even just the theater itself, your even your pages of your credits and just the backgrounds that you had evoke that great old-fashioned theater feeling. And I mean, it's like, oh man, we're in for a great treat, man. We're really going retro in the best ways and really having this kind of cliffhanger, pulpy experience and everything. So it was such a that 20s, 30s, 40s is such a gorgeous era, like the final golden era of like architecture and design and clothing. I mean, this, you know, we've kind of slacked off since then. There's still good stuff going on, but you think how casual people are now. Back then, it was like this super age of elegance in design and the mix of Deco and Art Nouveau, and you know, there's so much. The level of craft and quality and everything was so high across the board, all over the world. It's pretty amazing to see. Like, you travel around and see these amazing places still from that era, and man, the clothes and the people still look amazing. So it's fun to be able to play with that stuff. Have you ever talked to Chaikin about that? Because it seems like Chaikin is a guy that, you know, always pays attention to the great retro fashion designs and, of course, even the architecture and stuff in a lot of his stuff. I mean, that latest Times Square that he finally put out had a lot of examples of that kind of stuff. I don't know if you've ever talked to Howard about that. You know what? Next time I see him, I will ask him about that, because we've talked, but not about that. So that's a good one to pick up on. Yeah.
The one thing please jump in. I wanted to chime in about Adventure Man too. I think it's the only comic, because I'm a sucker. Like, I love single issues because that's like just my jam. But Adventure Man is the only comic that I get the single issues and the trades, just because those oversized trades is, you know, a lot of times when they're oversized, you just blow up the art and it's just the art bigger. But like the way Terry does it, it feels like a different aesthetic experience. Like, it's got a different rhythm, and it's just so cool. Like, when you sort of see stuff like that happen, like, you know, you experience it one way as a comics, but those in the oversized edition, it breathes in just a completely different way. It's so cool. Yeah, thanks. Do you find, Pornsak, that as an editor, you kind of really took even a step further beyond a typical reader and noticed things like that, and are really, you know, your spider senses are getting sharper, I think. Yeah. Well, the thing I'm kind of fascinated by comics is that just sometimes the size and shape of a comic can change the rhythm that you read it, you know? Like, I think the first time I noticed that, Mike Allred did a book called Red Rocket 7, and it's kind of shaped like a record, and it's got a different rhythm because it's shaped that way. You know, all those DC Black Label books, like, there's some artists just do big stuff, but some artists, like, you know, Cliff Chiang with Catwoman Lonely City is the first one that comes to mind. Like, it feels different. It's got like a different rhythm. And the cool thing, the really cool thing about Adventure Man is that the pages are obviously identical as you see them on the comics page, but it feels different as you're reading it, because, and that's, I think, just Terry knowing how to use the size and like the trick of, like, you know, letting things bleed and all that kind of stuff. So it just feels like a different aesthetic experience. It doesn't just feel like a regular comic, just bigger. It feels different when you're reading it. So it's I can't think of any other comic that works that way, really. By design, Terry? Oh yeah, because I started working in Europe 20 years ago now, and their books are published bigger, but they're also slightly wider. So the problem when you do translations of European books, there would always be these big gaps in the American editions, because they're not the way there'd be big gaps in the bottom, I think. And so, or when you take an American book, you put it over in Europe, there'd be big gaps on the outside. And so what I did as I was working on my very first European book, and then going into my next one, seeing all the different sizes and figuring things out, I figured out that there's kind of a middle ground halfway between those two sizes. And that's the size I draw my pages at.
And so when you publish it into a US book, it fits almost normal. It's a little bit off and no one can perceive that difference. But when you take that and put it into into the French wider size comic, you actually draw the pages with extra detail on the outside that doesn't show up in the US versions. And that fills up that space. And so when a full bleed happens, when it actually goes to the edge of the paper, it almost like explodes because you got all this extra room to show this element. And so, and I actually draw those pages to fit that European size, 1-to-1. So that's the main size I'm looking for when I'm drawing those pages. But it is something that I've mathematically figured out on Red One and made sure that worked both ways. And I've just used that same template now for both these books, both these projects. And it's cool. I think Adventure Man, you can really see the difference in, because Matt and I are doing a lot more bombastic, big things. So it really shows off that difference in using that more widescreen, wide European look.
All that said, I am glad that Image is coming out with the affordable, paperback, because again, these price points for Manchurian. What's the price point for this 40-page book?
$3.99. It's one of the things I love about doing stuff at Image is that you can put a really affordable sort of thing together.
Excellent. Good to hear. How about TV writing, Pornsak, for you? What's going on?
Nothing much at the moment. I'm working on a lot of sort of like pitches and development stuff. TV is still very much a weird world right now. We're still kind of coming off of the strike. There was a lot of there's a lot of sort of reduction in sort of the jobs, and so I think everyone is kind of waiting for streamers and networks to start buying things. It'll never be back to what it was 5 years ago, but I think they're all so scared right now they're not buying anything. And so once that faucet, and we've seen signs of the faucet beginning to turn on, but once that sort of turns on again, then so there'll be sort of more jobs coming. I think most of the TV writers I know are sort of waiting on that and working on that. And then meanwhile, I'm doing some pitches and doing some development stuff, and then the comics have been treating me well. And anytime I can do more comics, I'm happy.
No, that's cool. Tara, have they ever tap you to do any sort of conceptual design or anything for TV and movie projects?
I've done work on animation, so that's the closest I've done, which is I think actually more my strength, anyways. I do design work or character design for animation. I do character designs for video games as well. It's a fun job. It's for me. After drawing and designing so many characters for so many years, it's really it's a nice fun challenge to really simplify and go down to one character and really make this character work, three-dimensionally, all 360 views and all that stuff. I really love it. I love that aspect. It's a nice thing to play with as I'm doing comic work or whatever, to switch off and do character design. I don't know if it's officially been announced, but there's work I did at Marvel Animation Studios that'll be coming out really soon that I was one of the character designers on.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's great, man.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So I've kind of worked in everything art-wise except for live action, neither TV nor film, I don't think. Yeah.
Well,
I've done some stuff that's been used in the movies, of course, but not directly.
Understood. Yeah. Hey, Kevin Smith, good Lord, you worked with the guy. Tap him for a movie thing or a TV thing, man. Come on.
Yeah, I know. It's been a good. I've worked so long. I've been able to work with so many different amazing writers who've worked all over the place. Alan Heinberg, who's an amazing TV guy.
Love Alan.
Jodi Picoult, who's just an amazing novelist with a thrill. And Pornsak obviously worked in TV as well. Fraction. I mean, it's. I think comics has that appeal where you get people from all different walks of life and work that love this medium, and they make their careers doing something else, and then something comes up where they're able to work in comics, and it just has a really wide range of appeal, I think, because everybody gets a chance to kind of revisit their childhood, but the thing that sparked their imagination, and comics has that, and it's really easy to work on it as opposed to on a movie or TV where you're just part of so many other people, part of a bigger thing. Whereas in comics, it can be 1, 2, 3, 4 people all jamming on one thing, and you really feel that energy. It's a pretty unique medium. So when someone comes in from TV or film or whatever else, that they really are, it's easy for them to feel part of the family, I think.
Did you and your wife color Manchurian?
Just me. Yes.
Just you. Okay.
Yeah. No, I hire for my whole career. I've always hired just a flatter to do this stuff, and then I color it all myself.
So what did Rachel? I mean, I see both your names obviously on the.
Rachel inked it. Rachel inked
it, of course.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. I pencil. She inked everything, and then I color it. So yeah, that's all right. It's a common misconception.
And I appreciate you saying that. That's cool. One day, man. One day, I'm going to meet Rachel. Maybe I have to go to San Diego to meet her or whatever, but I hope so.
Yes.
I was kind of bummed that you were solo in Connecticut. I'm like, oh man, I was really hoping I'd meet Rachel on this trip. But all right.
Yeah, that was a quick trip.
I understand. No, it's all good, man.
Yeah.
Also, Ter, have there been filmmakers that have influenced where you put the camera panel wise and things like that?
Oh yeah. Well, yes, I'll say the very first filmmaker that influenced my entire career is George Lucas. I mean, I didn't draw before I saw Star Wars. And so as a child, man, after seeing that and being excited about toys and the comics and everything Star Wars, the making of and all that stuff, I had a friend that drew. And so with him, we started drawing. So I have a direct lineage from being influenced by movies to pick up a pencil and start drawing, because I think I was 8 or so by that time and I'd never drawn. And then I think as far as like directors that I like that I'm influenced by, I always love Steven Soderbergh. I mean, the way he tells stories and the way he sets up shots and how he lingers on shots and bounces around is exactly how I can't say it's exactly how I think, but it's very much a big influence on how I would tell a story. I think I love how you're here and then you're somewhere else. Quentin Tarantino did that in a kind of way in Pulp Fiction, but Soderbergh just, man, the way he drops scenes in and out and overlapping dialogue and music and cut shots and everything, that's really cool. It's probably one of my favorite directors.
Pornsak, for both this story, and obviously you guys mentioned the Bond aesthetic in the book as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Are there beyond James Bond? Are there other spy things?
Oh yeah, God. I mean, like there's tons. I mean, a lot of the big stuff. Bourne Identity, Mission Impossible, John le Carre, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. But like even stuff that what I call soft influences that were in the background that like I wasn't necessarily pulling off of, but like Slow Horses.
I was going to ask about Slow Horses.
Yeah,
if you guys are watching it, go ahead.
I love Slow Horses. What is it? There was, oh my God, now when you mention it, I'm blanking. Of course the Americans, but also like some like also old like shows like The Equalizer was also a big influence. So it's all that is sort of in the stew in there. But I really wanted to look at a lot of sort of like the classic, the classic, what I would call almost like the Western canon of espionage, and then just like see how I could integrate it with sort of like the Eastern approach of espionage and see how I can kind of like make them, mix the two and mingle the two.
No, I get it, man. It reminds me of that great line in the Dragon Bruce Lee story movie when they're like, it's a Western. He's like, it's an Eastern. And it's like, yeah, man, that's great. No, that's terrific. Very cool. Yeah. Are you guys, do you guys have time to stream anything? I'm so glad you mentioned Slow Horses because God, as soon as the new season dropped, I'm like, oh God, I've missed this show. Thank God it's back. I love that show.
I haven't gotten a chance to watch the latest season yet. Terry, I know you're hooked on it too, right?
Yeah, we're watching it as it airs. I mean, we love it. I mean, I'm a giant fan of British television, anyways. I love this. I love the mysteries and masterpieces, that they do, and this cast is so good. So yeah, it's actually on to a great start. It's 2 episodes in, and it's great. I mean, Gary Oldman's so good in the show, and all the actors are great, but he just tears it up. So it's been fun.
I just saw.
Ed Cato, by the way, impressed with Manchurian, guys.
Oh, cool! Thank you.
You just sold another book, so that's good.
Nice.
What was? And man, I was going to say regarding streaming stuff. Have you guys seen? And really, Pornsak, this kind of almost leans in a bit to at least the genre of The Good Asian as well. When I talk about it, it was on AMC and now it's on Netflix. Monsieur Spade. of the
I
Sam
saw the
Spade?
pilot of Monsieur Spade. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting because Tom Fontana, I think, wrote that. Who famous for Homicide and Oz. So yeah. No, I've only saw the pilot, but haven't gotten around. I do this thing where I watch a ton of pilots, and then it's just like, and then by the time I circle around, like, which show am I actually going to watch? But yeah, I caught that, and I love that. It's funny, watching Gary Oldman on Slow Horses, like, he's so good, you forget how much range he has. Like, I just saw State of Grace for the first time a month or so ago, and oh my God, that performance, like, is just it's hard to imagine it's the same guy who did the same things. It's such a different style of acting.
He's transformative. I agree with that. Terry, I don't know if you saw Monsieur Spade.
No, I didn't. No,
Okay.
That's I have not watched that one yet. I'm aware of it.
I'm a big Clive Owen fan anyway.
Yes,
and
right.
Man, he really. I mean, that hey, I'm going to be Sam Spade. Yeah, good fucking luck.
Yeah.
I mean, really, if you haven't watched it. But I am so impressed that he not only evoked Bogart because you can't help it. He's kind of similar, but he made it his own. And it reminds me of the various actors who've played Philip Marlowe over the years and managed to make it their own. And it really, I'm like, this is great. And it's set in France. And it's like 20 years after the Maltese Falcon or 10 years after.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. So I can't, I keep telling people, and it kind of came and went on AMC unless you have the AMC streamer. And I guess Netflix has gotten a bunch of slightly older AMC shows that at least currently are showing them. And it's like, oh my God, jump on this if you got Netflix.
Yeah. There's been a couple good detective series. Like I was watching Sugar with oh my God, Colin Farrell. Directed by the guy. I always get his name wrong, but he directed City of God, a movie I love. And talk about it. I mean, like the style on that show, it reminds me of Soderbergh. Everything is so deliberate, everything is so stylish, and so that one really pulled me in.
Cool.
Are you guys gonna watch Penguin on Max?
Oh yeah, I definitely am.
Yeah, I'm psyched. I haven't, I haven't gotten any access to any early, pilots or first episodes or anything. But I have to say, I'm kind of psyched. I just talked to Tom King about it, obviously, in his Penguin DC series. That is kind of a good, I mean, it's more DC Comics version of the Penguin.
Yeah.
It's, I think, synonymous. I think it's kind of in that same vein. And that's
and talk about a transformative performance, Colin Farrell in that. I haven't seen it, but just seeing him in the Batman was so it's such a different guy there. So,
it's again, well, like you said, like you guys said about Oldman too. Yeah, I mean, it's Cranston's like that too. I think God, compare Breaking Bad to when he played LBJ in that All the Way, both stage performance and the movie and stuff. And it's like, how's that the same guy? Another guy is like that. Rufus Sewell.
Oh, right.
He's in The Diplomat, that great show with Kerry Russell. And sadly, I had a moment in the hospital about 2 months ago. I'm fine now. Okay. But while I was there, I'm like, oh, look at this. This is a new movie. And it's called Scoop. And again, it was a Netflix movie.
Okay.
It's a British movie about the coverage of Prince Andrew and the big Jeffrey Epstein scandal. And it's trying to book him on the BBC's show Newsnight, which is their big news magazine show. And Rufus Sewell played Prince Andrew. And, they dyed his hair, they a little touch of makeup. And you compare that to your usual Rufus Sewell performance, plus what he did in The Diplomat. I'm like, I always think of Rufus Sewell, Knight's Tale, whatever. Big deal, bad guy. All right, whatever. He was so great in The Diplomat. And then it's a total 180 seeing him in this movie. It's a movie. It's not even a series. So if you got 2 hours, watch this thing.
Yeah.
Unfucking believable. And also I'm like, oh my God, this is Prince Andrew with Sarah Ferguson, 40 years later. And again, I'm just kind of used to my memory of young Prince Andrew.
Right.
And it's like, things have changed, haven't they, Andy? My goodness. Crazy shit.
We're all old now.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, but you're not as old as we are. I don't think.
You'd be surprised.
All right, maybe. All right. Well, then you're doing something right, man. You got the fountain of youth going for you. I don't know. Well, this is great. I mean, if this succeeds, how long of a gestation period do you think to get into another mini series or something else regarding
I mean,
Manchurian.
we have I mean, like me and Terry have talked about what the next project could be, and we've always talked about how, if the one shot is more Casino Royale, like the next thing is kind of our Goldfinger. So like we're just pretty much revved up and ready to go, and then it's just it's the old game of like schedules and all this kind of stuff. So we'll see how the data rolls in terms of all that, and then we'll figure things out from there. But a big part of the Horizon experiment was not to sometimes you can freeze up by just sort of saying like, what is this going to be in a year? Like, what are the people's schedules? And then nothing sort of happens. One of the energy, the thing I love about comics is, and I'm not quite old enough to really enjoyed it, but like the heyday of stuff like DC Showcase or DC First Issue Special, or like later on, Top Cow's pilot season, and
Absolutely.
Warren Ellis' operette stuff. Like comics are built on this tradition of just telling a done-in-one story and things growing from there. And it's this discipline that we've kind of forgotten. And I just love that so much. Again, I wasn't quite old enough to experience it, but I remember the days where you could get a subscription to a comic book where it would show up at just one single comic would show up bagged at your house. And the idea that there, a time slightly before I started collecting or reading, that you could have got showcased, like delivered to your house, and every issue you got a first issue for a new series, and you had no idea what it was, but it would just show up at your door. I think that's so cool. And so a lot of that was just trying to, tap back into that excitement of those things, but with a more modern sort of twist and a more modern sort of a directive and energy to it. And that's a lot of what the Horizon experiment is about.
I can appreciate that. I agree with you. I was a big first issue special nut. I mean, when Tom did Danger Street, Tom King. I'm like, I bought many of these issues, and I always told Walt Simonson, I'm like, really that Dr. Fate one shot in first issue special that you and Marty Pasco did, that was my real like, who's this guy Walt Simonson? Oh my god, I love this book. And the same with Marty. Marty really became a good friend of mine, and it really meant a lot. And I'm always like, Marty, my God. I mean, I really did love everything that Marty ever did, but I'm like, that Dr. Fate shit, good Lord. That was fantastic. And then they moved into the backup of the Flash and everything. Yeah. No, that was tremendous. So no, I hear what you're saying. And it is interesting because like Showcase started in that pop culture era when television and anthology shows on television were very prevalent. So no, the idea of a done-in-one was, just part of the storytelling zeitgeist, I think, of the time. So, and in fact, I don't know about you guys, but really, thank God for YouTube, because truly, I mean, these great names like Rod Serling and Pichetshote and all these wonderful writers and directors too, Sidney Lumet, John Frankenheimer, all these great guys started doing anthology shows and everything. Yeah. And man, thank God for YouTube, because a lot of that shit's just up there.
That's true.
And it's like, wow, I really think it's great. And I really think for aspiring directors and writers, I'm like, that's a really great lesson, man. Tell a tight story that you could actually manage to do in under an hour and really have a beginning, middle, and end and everything. I think it's great.
Totally.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, comics is this format where if you have an idea for a story, any story, you can tell it. You can be a writer or an artist or do it yourself or hire someone, but there really isn't a medium that is so that's like that, where you can get it out of people so easily as a comic book. So if you have any idea for a story, that's why anthologies are like this project is an example of these 5 totally different things that have never been done before, and we're able to do it because the medium allows us to do it. And it's like the best medium to experiment. And if anybody has an idea they want to do it for a comic, there's really nothing holding you back, because the paywall between creating a comic and getting it out to people is just simply put on the internet, right? You don't have to publish them; they can be published online. So there's, as I tell anyone that a young artist showing me stuff, there's nothing holding you back now. The world's your oyster. If you got a story to tell it, because it's so much more difficult to make a movie or a TV show or to write a novel or whatever. But with comics, it's so quick. The turnaround on it, especially.
Would either of you consider doing something for webtoons or tapas and that kind of digital format that obviously is really kind of happening right now alongside traditional comics?
I'm always up for experimentation, so I totally it would require me to actually be less of a Luddite and actually like, read all that stuff more and really get to all that sort of stuff. Even now, people send me PDFs for blurbs, and I consistently forget that my iPad can have comics on it, like consistently.
Right.
So I would need to get used to it, but I absolutely would be fascinated. I would absolutely be fascinated too.
I think as long as I knew that at some point it would get printed, I'd have no problem with the digital delivery. Wouldn't bother me at all. I could almost see the advantages of starting out digitally, because with digital you're hitting 8 billion people.
Yeah.
And so if you can get those people to read your book initially that way, but then knowing eventually you're going to take those people, that 1% of those, 10% of those, to buy your comic, that's an amazing way to test something out as well. But, the end goal would have to be a printed book, though.
Have you thought, Terry, about, and again, I understand this is kind of just speculation, but much like you were saying, the difference between the European format and the bigger format stuff, the vertical format of digital, but also the panel to panel sequence is different than reading a whole comic book page and stuff like that. Have you thought about that in terms of that at all, as far as storytelling?
Yeah, a lot. Because I'm always thinking about formats and style and pacing and how the best way to do that. And I've come up with an idea that I think I could tell stories that would work just as well on an iPad as in the comic. So it's just deciding what story I do that with. But there's definitely ways to do it. I know I won't when I'm drawing something, I won't sacrifice a page that I know is going to be printed traditionally I won't sacrifice that impact for print to make it work for digital. That's not my problem. I hope that most of what I do, 95% of what I do, is really easy to translate digitally. But there are certain things there's certain magic to a comic book page with a double page spread and way things can overlap that you lose a bit digitally. And I just think that's what makes the comic special. I always default to the printed version first.
I understand, and I'm fascinated by what's happening digitally and everything, and I think it's great. Mm-hmm. And as you say, it's an easy access. Dave Wachter, years before he really got his breaks and stuff, put out his Western that he did as a page a week digital comic and stuff. Not exactly obviously the webtoon or tapas format and stuff, but no, or Mike Norton did Paddle Pug that way as well.
Yeah.
It's
a great way to work. Again, if you don't have a publisher, man, what a great way to just get your stuff out. If you have a story you really want to tell, if you really think you can draw comic books, put them online. There it is. And if it's good, an audience will develop.
I mean, look at Lore Olympus. I mean, like that's a huge juggernaut, and I'll start off as an online comic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, guys, truly, I think you really got something here. The Horizon experiment begins with the Manchurian from our guest, Terry Dodson, Pornsak Pichetshote. And it's a wonderful first issue. And Pornsak told us the lineup to expect in subsequent months. But it's going to be a lot of fun. 5 really interesting issues, taking established genres and giving them a modern twist and putting a little diversity in there. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think succeeding. And again, man, now you guys got some high caliber talent following you in this thing. And, I got to bug Will Dennis to come back on and talk about some of these other issues. So, Pornsak, help me put the bug in Will's there to come back.
Bug in Will's there, absolutely.
And Tara, way to go as always. And seriously, man, beautiful book.
Cool, thank you.
And, so great to hear that Adventure Man is coming back early next year. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, thanks, John. I appreciate it.
Guys, I appreciate it. Seriously, it always means a lot when guys like you come back and we find new things to talk about. So truly, you're both always welcome to come back and talk whenever. But really, good luck with the Manchurian. I hope this does eventually result in more stories. So keep up the great work. Everybody, thanks a lot for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm trying to think now. I'm in my brain. I'm like, who have I got coming up? I think that's it for this week. I do know next week I'm going to talk to an old Marvel editor from the 90s, that period right right when the crash was happening. Wow. Greg Greenberg, another guy that I met at Terrificon, really sweet guy. He was tabling with Ralph Macchio, and I'm like, you know, I and he's like, hey, if you ever want to have me on, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And he actually did the panel with me and Ralph too, and it's like, God, there's nothing like talking to a guy that's there and sees like some of the crazy stuff, and we all know just from the periphery what was happening with Marvel in that period right before the near bankruptcy and before guys like Avi Arad and Jemis and Casada really turned the company around. I of course have to throw Jimmy Palmiotti in there as well, because Marvel Knights really, I think, shook up everybody and said, wait a minute, Marvel's suddenly making exciting shit again. Well, what happened before that? So Greg's going to be on, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. And Michael Kingston, one of my favorite guys that's always at Artist Alley's. Michael does these amazing wrestling comic books. And if people don't know, if you're a wrestling fan, Michael is really like in sync with the wrestling world. He's good friends with Lawler, Jerry Lawler, and a lot of great wrestling stars, and just really managed to convey the spirit of wrestling in his independent comics. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So that's a tease for next week. But I thank you guys for being on today. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. Until next time, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.